Hey everybody, Engine Doc back with you again. We've got another engine to look at here. This time we've got a little 2 horsepower Detroit, little 2-cycle engine. Here it is sitting on the cart. We'll take a look at it here in a few minutes. And I've been doing a little bit of work to it. I've had it running. It doesn't run right, but it does run. It's got good compression. And I've always admired these engines, and I've always wanted one. So I finally got a chance to get one here. And we'll take a little bit closer look at it, and I'll show you what's wrong with it and what we're going to attempt to fix. Here's a view from the off side of the engine. Has the original muffler and what appears to be the original cooling tank. If it's not original, somebody has done an excellent job in reproducing an original. And it's on a nice little set of trucks here. And overall, it's in excellent condition in my opinion. It's got a nice little paint job on it. I'm not a big fan of paint, but somebody has done a real good job on this one. It's got the old 2-piece Champion plug in it there, and it's got a nice little double oiler, Detroit oiler on it. Here's a mixer. We'll go into that here in a minute. And it's got spark advance and retard here. And this is actually a switch that you can squeeze this and cut the ignition off and let it coast down a little bit. Roll this back the other way, and at just the right time you can release that and it'll reverse rotate, run the other way. Here's a simple part of the throttle control here on the air mixer. That's the air inlet. This is actually a version of early fuel injection. And here's the port, what we would call today the fuel injector. It has a adjustment knob on it here for mixture. This is a float bowl. We've got quite a healthy airplane going over at this time. And this is an oil port here from one side of the oiler, and then direct cylinder oil here on the other side of the 2-way oiler. Priming cup, and fuel tank is back underneath the cooling tank there. There's the fill for it. And it was nasty. I'm going to have to get it out of there and clean it. Had a bunch of nasty gas in it. So it runs. If I fill the bowl with fuel, it will run until the fuel drops down below this level, then it quits. And the fuel supply, delivery, and holding system has a problem. We'll get into that here shortly. The advertising literature I've been able to find on the web states that the engine only has 3 moving parts. Well, I would consider the rotating assembly, crankshaft, and flywheels as 1, the connecting rod in there as 2, and the piston as number 3. So there are no movable valves. It's all piston port, induction, and exhaust, and injection, and fuel supply. The cooling system is thermosiphon. The hot water naturally rises to the top and goes into the tank. Cool water comes through here, and it actually will flow that way. So there's no moving parts there, no water pump, anything like that. Here's a shot of the cooling tank side of the engine. Nice lettering on it there. And down below is a battery box. I'll raise the hood on the battery box here, and in here we've got a buzz coil, a switch, and a place for a battery. It's all very neatly done inside this little wood box here. Now I've already been into this and figured out what's wrong with it, so I can tell you with some amount of prior education here what's going on. This lid comes off conveniently, and there's a float in there. And when I put fuel in here, you can pop this lid off easily and put fuel in there and prime it up. And when I put fuel in there, the float wouldn't float, it would sink. This is the old float right here. Get a good close look at that. That thing has seen better days. It's probably 105 or 6 years old. Somebody's tried to put some sealer on top of it here, that tank sealer. But actually the sealer needed to go on the bottom. Kind of tricky getting that float out of there. But it sits in there, and I'll show you exactly how it works here. So it may be a little shaky here, but I got to show you this. As soon as you pull this float out, there's a little wire bail here that holds it to the center stem right there. And the center stem goes down in the bottom of the bowl, and when that float raises that stem up, it closes a valve off down there. And when the float is up and that valve is off, because the float is holding the valve closed, it doesn't allow any more fuel into the bowl. Now at the bottom of the bowl, there's another ball type check valve. It's in here. And there it is in there. And when there's fuel in the bowl, that check valve seats and doesn't let it run back to the tank. So you've got a valve that closes the fuel flow from here up when the float chamber is full, and then this ball holds the fuel in the chamber and doesn't let it escape back to the tank. So where this fuel bowl is attached to the engine is right here on this elbow, and this elbow, this port, is in the crankcase side of the piston. This is the bypass port here. So there's a chamber up through here and it comes in right here, and when the piston comes down, there's positive pressure coming into the bowl. When the piston goes up, there's negative pressure on the bowl. So during the part of the stroke where there's negative pressure in here, fuel is drawn up from this line to the bottom of the bowl. Then when there's negative or positive pressure in here, then this becomes pressurized and the fuel is forced here out this port to the fuel injector, which is right here. So there's constantly positive, negative pulsing going on in this bowl, operating the valves and putting pressure on here and injecting the fuel in at the proper time. So being operated by air, this fuel is injected into the engine. So if you want to throttle the engine down, you come over here to the air control side, and the governor will raise this arm up and not allow it to suck much air, or fall down and allow it to suck a reasonable amount of air, enough to make full power. So between this valve system and this valve system and the timing, you have a lot of control over the speed and power that the engine produces. So my next trick to get this engine running is to either make a float or find one, and I'm going to check some sources and see if there's any of these floats available, either new, old stock, which I highly doubt, or somebody reproducing them, or I can make it myself if I find the right material. The other problem that I think the engine has, and I haven't had it running long enough to really see if this is a problem or not, but I'm pretty sure it is the arm here that operates the air control valve right here. It's operated by the governor weight, which actually allows it to move this rod right here. And if you look, and you can see that there's a little brass block down there that's loose on that arm, and that'll allow a lot of movement from the governor but it won't move the arm very far. So I'm going to take that apart and see if I can tighten that block up and get the governor linkage, the slop out of the governor linkage. I think that'll help things too. So at any rate, that's the overview of the Detroit 2-horse of about, close as I can tell, the way this one is equipped, about 1914-15 era. So we'll continue on when I have more to show you.